The shaving cream froze in Tommy Castellano's hand as the bleeding gang member stumbled through his barbershop door. "Help me, old man," the MS-13 tattooed stranger gasped, blood seeping through his shirt. "They're gonna kill me." Tommy's hand instinctively moved toward his medical kit, the same instincts that had kept Navy SEALs alive in Mogadishu 40 years ago. Because once a medic, always a medic, even when your operating room is a Brooklyn barbershop. But what this dying gang member didn't know was that the quiet 68-year-old barber cutting hair in Little Italy had once been the most decorated combat medic in SEAL team history, a man who had performed surgery under enemy fire, who had pulled teammates back from the edge of death in Somalia, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Today, those same hands that had saved Special Forces operators would face their ultimate test, saving the life of someone the rest of the world had given up on. Welcome to Echo Stories. Before we begin this powerful story, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from, and if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. Castellano's barbershop sat on the corner of Mulberry and Grand Street in Little Italy, Brooklyn. The red, white, and blue barber pole had been spinning for 40 years, ever since Tommy Castellano hung up his Navy uniform and picked up his scissors. It was an old-school establishment, black and white checkered floor, vintage barber chairs from the 1950s, the smell of talcum powder and aftershave hanging in the air. The walls were covered with faded photographs, some of old Brooklyn, some of customers who'd become friends, and a few that Tommy never talked about. Tommy Castellano, 68 years old, was exactly what you'd expect from a Brooklyn barber. Thick Brooklyn accent, stories about the neighborhood, gentle hands that could give you the closest shave of your life. He knew 3 generations of families, had cut hair for grandfathers, fathers, and now their sons. "Tommy's the best," customers would say. "Been coming here since I was a kid. My dad brought me, now I bring my son." What they didn't know was that before Tommy learned to cut hair, he had learned to save lives. Before he mastered the art of the straight razor, he had mastered trauma surgery under the most extreme conditions imaginable. Little Italy in Brooklyn wasn't what it used to be. Gentrification had pushed out many of the old Italian families, replaced corner stores with trendy cafes, transformed the character of streets that had remained unchanged for decades. But some things persisted. Castellano's barbershop was one of them. It was a place where time moved differently, where men could sit and talk without judgment, where the outside world's problems seemed to pause at the door. Tommy had built relationships that went beyond customer and barber. When Mr. Benedetto's wife passed away, Tommy closed the shop early to attend the funeral. When young Anthony Rossi graduated from college, Tommy was there with a card and a handshake. "He's like family," the neighborhood would say. "Tommy's been here longer than anybody." But even family doesn't always know your secrets. It was 2:30 p.m. on a Tuesday when everything changed. Tommy was finishing up a haircut for Mr. D'Angelo, an 82-year-old retired dock worker who came in every 2 weeks like clockwork. "You know, Tommy," Mr. D'Angelo was saying, "my grandson's thinking about joining the Navy. What do you think?" Tommy paused his scissors for just a moment. "It's a good life if you're willing to serve something bigger than yourself. You ever think about enlisting when you were young?" "Different times back then," Tommy replied, which was his standard answer to questions about his past. The bell above the door chimed as another customer walked in. Tommy glanced up in the mirror and immediately felt his awareness shift. This wasn't a regular customer. The young man who entered was about 19, maybe 20. Latino, wearing a blood-stained white t-shirt and jeans. His neck was covered in MS-13 tattoos. His face was pale from blood loss, and his eyes held the desperate look of someone being hunted. Mr. D'Angelo noticed too. "Tommy, maybe I should come back later." "No, stay seated," Tommy said calmly, but his voice carried an authority that Mr. D'Angelo had never heard before. The young man stumbled forward, one hand pressed against his side, where blood was seeping through his fingers. "Please," he gasped. "They're coming for me. I need help." Most 68-year-old barbers would have called 911 and stepped back. Tommy Castellano stepped forward. "Sit down," Tommy instructed, guiding the young man to the empty barber chair. "Let me see." "I can't go to a hospital," the young man said, panic in his voice. "They'll find me there." Tommy gently lifted the blood-soaked shirt. 3 stab wounds, 1 deep, 2 superficial. The deep one had missed vital organs but was bleeding heavily. In Mogadishu, Tommy had seen worse. Much worse. Mr. D'Angelo, Tommy said without taking his eyes off the wounds. There's a first aid kit in the back room. The big one, behind the supplies. Mr. D'Angelo looked confused. Tommy, we should call the kit. Now? There was something in Tommy's voice, calm, authoritative, medical, that made Mr. D'Angelo move without further question. Tommy's hands moved with practiced precision. He'd learned trauma medicine in the Navy, perfected it with the SEALs, and used it in the world's most dangerous places. The barbershop wasn't Somalia, but a life was a life. What's your name? Tommy asked as he began cleaning the wounds. Miguel, the young man whispered. Miguel, I need you to stay calm and breathe slowly. You're going to be okay. You don't understand, man. I tried to get out. I tried to leave the gang and I understand more than you think, Tommy said, applying pressure to stop the bleeding. Right now, focus on staying alive. Mr. D'Angelo returned with the medical kit, his eyes wide. Tommy, where did you learn? Long story, Tommy replied, threading a suture needle with the steady hands of someone who had done this hundreds of times before. As Tommy worked, muscle memory took over. The precise movements, the calm under pressure, the ability to focus entirely on saving a life while chaos swirled around him. This was who he had been before he became a barber. You're military, Miguel said, recognizing something in Tommy's demeanor. Was, Tommy replied, continuing to suture. Long time ago. Naval? Something like that. Mr. D'Angelo watched in amazement as Tommy transformed from neighborhood barber to something else entirely. The gentleman who cut his hair twice a month was performing surgery with the skill of a trained medical professional. Tommy, Mr. D'Angelo said quietly, I've known you for 15 years. I had no idea you could. There's a lot about people we don't know, Tommy said, checking Miguel's pulse. Even people we think we know well. The front doorbell chimed again. This time, two men entered wearing colors Tommy recognized as rival gang members. They were looking for someone. Stay calm, Tommy whispered to Miguel, positioning himself between the barber chair and the door. Afternoon, one of the men said, scanning the shop. We're looking for someone. Young kid, Latino, probably bleeding. Haven't seen anyone like that, Tommy replied, his voice steady. The man's eyes fixed on the bloody towels Tommy hadn't had time to hide. You sure about that, old man? I'm sure. The tension in the room was thick. Mr. D'Angelo sat frozen in his chair. Miguel tried to make himself smaller, but he was clearly visible. That's when the second man spotted him. There he is. This is a place of business, Tommy said, stepping fully between the gang members and Miguel. Whatever issue you have with this young man, it doesn't happen here. The first man laughed. Old man, you don't want to get involved in this. I'm already involved. You know who we are. I know who you think you are, Tommy replied. But right now, you're in my shop, and this young man is under my protection. The second man reached inside his jacket. Tommy recognized the movement immediately. Someone going for a weapon. 40 years of training kicked in. What happened next lasted 3 seconds, but felt like slow motion. Tommy moved with a speed and precision that defied his 68 years. He grabbed the man's wrist before the gun cleared his jacket, applied a pressure point technique that made him drop the weapon, and had him on the ground before his partner could react. The second man started to move, but Tommy was already facing him, holding the dropped gun with the casual competence of someone who had handled weapons his entire adult life. Now, Tommy said calmly, you're going to leave my shop. You're not going to come back, and you're going to forget you saw anyone here today. Both gang members stared at him. The quiet neighborhood barber had disappeared, replaced by something much more dangerous. Who the hell are you? The first man gasped from the floor. Someone you don't want to meet again. After the gang members left, Mr. D'Angelo finally found his voice. Tommy, what just happened? Tommy set down the gun and returned to checking Miguel's bandages. I helped a customer. No, I mean, the way you moved, the way you handled those guys. That wasn't normal. Tommy looked at his old customer, then at Miguel, who was staring at him with new understanding. I was Navy SEAL for 20 years, Tommy said simply. Combat medic. Did 6 tours in places most people can't pronounce. SEAL? Mr. D'Angelo's voice was barely a whisper. You mean like the guys you see in movies, except quieter and with less explosions? Miguel tried to sit up. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because it's not who I am anymore. I left that life to come here, to do something peaceful, to build relationships instead of... Tommy gestured vaguely. other things. But you saved my life, Miguel said. Both from bleeding out and from those guys. That's what medics do. We save lives. Doesn't matter whose life it is. Mr. D'Angelo was still processing. Tommy, for 15 years I've been coming here, telling you about my problems, my family. And you never said anything about this. Because this, Tommy gestured around the barbershop, is more important than what I used to do. This is home. This is family. That other stuff, that was just a job. Just a job? Miguel looked incredulous. You were a Navy SEAL, and now I'm a barber. I'd rather cut hair than... Tommy paused, choosing his words carefully, than hurt people. I want out, Miguel said suddenly, from the gang, from all of it, but I don't know how. Tommy studied the young man's face. It's not easy. They don't like to let people go. You did it. You left the military and became something else. Different situation. I finished my service with honor. You're dealing with people who don't understand honor. But you'll help me? Tommy was quiet for a long moment. There are programs, people who help kids get out of gang life. It's dangerous, and it takes time, but it's possible. Will you help me find them? Another long pause. Yes. Word traveled fast in Little Italy. By evening, half the neighborhood knew something had happened at Castellano's barbershop. Stories varied. Some said Tommy had fought off armed robbers. Others claimed he'd performed emergency surgery. Mrs. Benedetto knocked on the shop door after closing. Tommy, is it true what they're saying? Depends what they're saying. That you saved some boy's life today, and that you're some kind of war hero. Tommy finished cleaning his tools. I helped someone who needed help. That's all. Tommy, she said gently, why didn't you ever tell us? Because it doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm here now. I'm part of this community, and I care about the people in it. She hugged him then. This tough 75-year-old Italian woman who had lived through everything Brooklyn could throw at her. Your family, Tommy. War hero or not, your family. The next day, Tommy opened the shop at the usual time. Word had spread, but he treated it like any other day. Customers came in, some with questions, others just wanting their regular cuts. Miguel returned too, moving carefully, but walking on his own. How are you feeling? Tommy asked. Better. Those programs you mentioned, I called one of them. Good, it's a process, but they'll help you. I wanted to ask you something. What's that? Would you teach me? Teach you what? How to help people, like you do. Tommy paused his sweeping. Miguel, I'm a barber. No, you're someone who saves lives, whether it's with medical training or just by giving people a place where they feel safe. I want to learn how to do that. Tommy looked at this young man who 24 hours ago had been bleeding to death in his chair and saw something he recognized. Someone looking for a way to serve something bigger than himself. We'll start with sweeping, Tommy said, handing him the broom. 6 months later, Miguel was working part-time at the barbershop while attending community college. He'd left the gang, with help from the programs Tommy had connected him with. It hadn't been easy. There had been threats, there had been dangerous moments, but the combination of professional help and Tommy's quiet protection had made it possible. Mr. D'Angelo still came in every 2 weeks. You know, Tommy, he said during one visit, my grandson did join the Navy. How's he doing? Good. He says he wants to be a medic, says he wants to help people like his grandfather's barber does. Tommy smiled. Tell him it's a good life if you're willing to serve something bigger than yourself. I will. And Tommy? Yeah? Thank you for everything you've done, for this neighborhood, for Miguel, for all of us. Tommy nodded and continued cutting hair. Outside, Brooklyn continued its endless transformation, but inside Castellano's barbershop, some things remained constant. The sound of scissors, the smell of aftershave, and the presence of a man who had found his way home. And so, in a small barbershop in Brooklyn, it was proven once again that the most powerful heroes are often hiding in plain sight. A man who could have traded on his military record chose instead to build something quiet and lasting. He chose community over recognition, relationships over reputation. Real heroes don't need audiences. They just need someone who needs help. If this story meant something to you, share your thoughts in the comments. If you believe stories like this should continue to be told, support Echo Stories by subscribing. See you in the next video. And remember, that quiet person serving you, whether it's cutting your hair, making your coffee, or checking your groceries, might have a story that would leave you speechless. Everyone deserves respect, because everyone has a story worth telling.